And then that just moves us into our All-Australian. I think we need to set this up a bit better than we did last time. We got a bit confused with the way we were delivering it. So I reckon we go back six, then we go our middle six. So our three across the middle, then the ruckman and the two followers. And then last we'll say our six forwards, and then we'll talk about the bench at the end. So starting with the six backmen, Brody, who have you got in the backs in your All-Australian team?
Well, I actually found the back line probably the hardest to pick out of all of them because there's actually been a lot of, especially key position backs this year. There's been a lot of good ones. So this was difficult for me. But back pocket, I had Maynard. He's been super consistent and reliable all year. He can shut down the small forward. So he was a lock for me. Harris Andrews is full back. Don't think much needs to be said about him. Probably the best key defender in the competition at the moment. I chucked in Darcy Moore in the back pocket. I know it's a bit controversial, but I had to have three tall backs. I couldn't leave one of them out, so I put him in. Then I got Luke Ryan from Freo on a flank. Great intercept marker. Been a really good player this year. Much improved for Freo. Then I've chucked my boy Wiedering at centre half back. He's been impenetrable this year. I know he's not very flashy as a Darcy Moore or something like that, but he gets the job done week in, week out. And he's been a really big improver for Carlton, and he'll be a gun defender for 10 years to come. And I've got the wee man, Caleb Daniel, on my other half-back flank. Has to be the best kick in the competition. I don't know if you can name another person who is so clean and, can hit targets off both left and right foot. And I needed someone in my back line to take the kick-outs and deliver the ball well and be a bit more aggressive. Yeah, that's my back six.
Rowie, who have you got in your back six?
It's pretty similar. Got a couple of changes. I've got Luke Ryan starting the first back pocket. Roy touched him. He's just an absolute rock for the Dockers. Harris Andrews, full back. Enough said there. And then a man that also is in Brody's back pocket that maybe shouldn't be, but given the need to have three key defenders, I've got Darcy Moore in there. Just ranging in around as a third tall, just taking clunks left, right, and centre. Back flankers, Caleb Daniel, obviously, huge part to the Dogs system, just clean ball user out of the back. Jordan Ridley has also made it on some other flank, obviously won Essendon's best and fairest. He was probably one of their only few shining lights of the year. And then a man that has not made even the squad, a centre half back in Stephen May. Obviously one of the best lockdown defenders, kept a lot of his opponents to 2 goals or less throughout the year. He's made by centre half back position. I've snubbed Wiedering because he's not impenetrable. Max King kicked a couple on him in his fifth game, so I'll rebut you there, Brody. But that's my pitch.
Pilch, who are you going with?
I found that this year's class had quite a strong defensive, a lot of good defenders from this year. But I've gone Luke Ryan back pocket, pretty obvious. Andrews fullback, and then the one bloke who, in my opinion, can contest Daniel for the best kick. No one really gives him credit for it, but Jake Lloyd, I don't think I've ever seen him miss a target coming out of the back 50. And he's another one that I thought was pretty stiff not to make the squad. And then half back line, Maynard. I've come around to Wiedering at centre half back because you hear all these stats of him having 50 balls kicked to him and his opponent, and he lost 2 of them or something like that. And Carlton concede a lot more inside 50s than Collingwood with Darcy Moore and stuff. So he's got a much harder job back there. And then finally, Jordan Ridley. I had Haynes there until the final 2 weeks where he didn't get a touch, so Ridley's come in.
Just a quick segue before I get into my back six. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story today, but the Jake Lloyd thing just triggered it in my head. Brody, do you think your team's success should be taken into account when picking the All-Australian team? Because I'd say that's probably a big factor for when considering a Jake Lloyd type in a bottom 4 team.
Yeah, I do think it does. I mean, Jake Lloyd's a hard one. I know he uses the ball really well, but I don't know if he can really hurt you. A lot of his kicks are little chips sideways he'll take the back pocket and chip it 20 meters to someone. So I don't think it really damages you, but definitely, well, in previous years, the selectors of the actual team always go for the teams that are higher up. So yeah, I think if it's sort of line ball between two players, I think you usually take the one in the more successful team. Yeah.
Yeah, Rowie, do you agree with that system, or do you reckon it should just be a player v player, like on merit sort of situation?
I do believe with it. I just think at times it can be used too extremely. I think there are a couple of cases in the All Australian selections that sort of exemplified that. I think a few players.
Others.
Yeah, I wasn't going to name one or two poor players, but I just think it might be. Yeah, look, it is obviously a deciding factor, but I think it should be toned down a touch, but it is definitely a factor to include them in there. The fact that they've contributed to their team's success. So when you look at it like that, it obviously makes a lot of sense. But to snub a couple of players based on their team's success when it's pretty obvious they've done their best to get them as far as they've come. I think it's pretty stiff.
Yeah. All right, I'll roll into my back six. I'll get the questions going every now and then, so we're not just rolling out names. So I've done my All-Australian team, as I mentioned before. I'm Brownlow, so there's some big flaws with it, because obviously if you're on a bad team, you're kind of more likely to get votes if you stand out. But my back pockets are Luke Ryan, and I don't think this guy's even ever talked about, but Jaden Short. Me and Pilch, we realised maybe halfway through the year there was a bit of a flaw with the algorithm. It favoured people who took like the kickouts. Like I know Tom Stewart absolutely killed it with this system, because he would take a kick out. Every kick out was a rebound 50 and it would go 70 meters. So it was like bulk meters gained, rebound 50s, effective kicks. So we did realize there was a bit of a flaw there in my system. But yeah, so I've got Ryan and Short in the back pockets. And then I've got Robbie Tarrant actually down at fullback. I was going to go, he was kind of lower down in my votes, but I didn't really want to pick like three tall intercepting backs. I thought I should have like a lockdown guy. So he was my highest voter in that kind of category. And then across the half back line, I've got Maynard, Haynes, and Ridley. So yeah, I don't know if having only really one proper defender is fair, but oh well, everyone else can cop. Ryan does a little bit of defending. Haynes can probably like do a job as a spare almost, but yeah, I don't know.
I think Ryan's one-on-one capabilities are pretty underrated. Like he often plays on the main tall of the other team, whereas Haynes and Ridley kind of play spare.
Yeah. And then in terms of the defenders who just missed out for me, Sicily is worth a shout out. I was almost close to having him, but I thought it was a bit ridiculous given he only played like half the season. But he was right up there for my Brownlow, full stop, let alone the All-Australian team. So, yeah, I thought he was worth a shout out. And then, yeah, Tommy Stewart, wanted to get him in there, but I didn't feel like he was good enough to be like my actual lockdown defender. All right, the middle six, Pilch, who are you going with here?
Yep, I'll start with the centre line. So I've got Zach Merritt on one wing. I thought he was a very stiff emission from the squad, because his stats were unbelievable, and I think he was like top 6 or top 8 for coaches' votes or something like that as well. So yeah, I think he was probably the best winger in the season. And then centre, Neil, and on the other wing, I wanted to have two wingers, but the midfielders were just too good this year. So I've gone Taylor Adams on the other wing. I think he was Collingwood's best midfielder this season, and another one that kind of went under the radar a bit. And then followers, Gorney over Nick Nat. I had Nick Nat last time, but I think Gorney just he almost brings what Nick Nat does with the hit outs, but around the ground he's just 10 times as good as Nick Nat is. So I've gone with him. And then Boak and Steele, two pretty obvious ones to close out the guts.
Yeah, good choices. Rowie?
I've gone for one wingman and then two traditional mids across the first three. I've gone Sam Menegola on one wing. I think he's had a really underrated year. He's a gut runner as well. You see him in the D50 and then 30 seconds later, Geelong going forward and he's lining up for a goal. So he's also had a couple of massive games. I think that's one thing that selectors need to take into consideration, that the blokes that have consistent years with the odd breakout game should definitely be recognised over ones that have just consistent seasons all around. I've got Lachie Neale, obviously in the centre, not much of a surprise there. And I've got this I guess brings upon the topic before when you said the success sort of players a contributing factor to the All-Australians. So I've got McRae over Zach Merritt. It was literally down to those two. I've gone McRae just because I think it's just week in, week out. He's always just getting tons of the footy. Helps complement players like Bont and stuff who don't get that much, but obviously impacted a lot more. I think it's just vital to their game plan. Across the next three, I've got Nat Nui in the ruck. But Gorney is coming, don't worry. I've got Oak and Steele, and I think they'll be second and third in the Brownlow. So pretty obvious midfield choices there, I think.
Brody, finish it off, mate.
Well, the three on ballers I had the same: Boak, Steele, and Neil. I think that's pretty 100% accurate on that one. They've clearly been the three best on ballers this season. My ruckman is Nat Nui. I can't believe you went Gorn. I just reckon Nat Nui's clearly the most. I know he doesn't get as much of the ball as some of the other ruckmen, but the way he sets up his midfielders, and that's primarily the number one job of the ruckman, he's clearly the best in the competition. So I had to have him. And then I'm probably a bit stubborn with wingers in the All-Australian team. Like I always have to have two genuine wingmen because it's like sort of a specialised role. You know, they have to keep their width all the time and be like the loose man in defence and help out. So I had Menegola on one wing, same as you, Rowie. And I wasn't sure about this. I could have put McRae, but McRae sort of plays a bit wing and in the middle. So I had Gaff on my other wing. He's not ultra damaging, but he's super consistent, gets a lot of the ball. Nice to have a good left footer on a wing. So, yeah, I went with Gaff as my other wingman.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll be honest, I don't have any wingmen, but I hate people who don't pick wingmen because I just think of cricket. It's like you're not going to pick 7 opening batsmen, or you're not going to pick 2 middle order batsmen to open the batting in like a team of the year or something. So I don't appreciate it when people get picked out of the position, to be honest, full stop. But I'm doing exactly that. Partly because there weren't too many wingers high in like my Brownlow voting system, and also my knowledge isn't really that good, so I don't even know who plays on the wing most of the time. But my middle six, all right, let's start with my centre bounce squad recept. All right, so you've got Nick Nat, you've got Grundy, you've got Gawn. They're all playing second fiddle to your man Todd Goldstein. Definitely not a beneficiary of playing in the worst team in the comp. Well, second worst. Yeah, he actually racked in votes in the first 10 rounds. Don't reckon he registered a vote in the second half of the season. Then with him in the centre bounce, I've got Cloliver, Cripps, and Neil. Don't worry, Rowie Steele's coming later. And then on the wings, these guys aren't wingers, but I just picked blokes who they kind of can play half forward if you want, but Danger and Boak. But yeah, far from wingman. I 100% accept that. All right, that leads us into the forward six. Brody, do you want to start us off, mate?
Yeah, well, considering I did pick a couple wingmen, I need to sneak a few midfielders into my forward line. So that sort of had a bit of a say in mine. So half forward line, I had Petrarca. He played on ball most of the season, but he actually showed the ability to go forward and kick snags. So had him on one flank. Big Charlie Dixon is centre half forward. Not much needs to be said about him. The focal point of Port's forward line, always creating a contest, has a huge presence on the ground. So he's the perfect centre half forward type. And then I had Dusty on the other half forward flank. Dusty probably hasn't had as good a year as other seasons, but I feel like we sort of hold that against some of the absolute guns. They're still clearly he's still clearly one of the best in the comp. So even if he hasn't quite been as good as other seasons, he's still in the best team. And then forward pockets, I had Dan Butler. I heard a stat, the number one small forward goals for this season. Is that right, Rowie?
That is right, mate. By
Number,
one, but he's the
number
leader.
one pressure player as well. And then I had Big Tomahawk as my full forward. Won the Coleman. You know, he actually played really deep as well of the season. Like, he actually sat full forward like Plugger used to back in the day or whatever. So he was clear full forward. And then Liam Ryan came storming home for me. I would have had maybe Papley, but I thought Liam Ryan actually won the Eagles a couple games late in the season, almost off his own boot. So another, you know, exciting small forward who can do everything. So he filled up my other spot in the forward six.
All right, Rowie.
Yeah, I've got a similar situation. Given I put in Menegola and I guess McRae, I've had to put in a few midfielder forwards into my forward line. So on the first flank, I've got Paddy Dangerfield. I think the weekend's game against the Swans just showed how much of a threat he can be going forward as well as in the midfield. And those type of players are obviously pretty rare. I've got the big Tomahawk at centre half forward. It's him or Dixon. They're both half forward and full forward. So he's just sort of switching there. I've got Hawk there because he's also leading, as well as winning the Coleman, he's also leading the comp in goal assists. So that's obviously a massive achievement. Someone that spends half of his time kicking goals as well. And then Petrarca on the other flank, obviously similar situation to Danger, can be just as big a threat going forward as he is around the ground. And obviously those top players are rare. I've also gone with you, Brody. I've gone Liam Ryan. I think just some of his quarters late in the season were unbelievable. I think he won the Eagles the game in, I think it was the second quarter against the Roos. He had a ridiculous quarter. Then Charlie Dixon, a full forward, just there to just take absolute clunks. And then, yeah, Dan Butler in the other pocket. I think his just speed and attack on the opposition defenders and as well as on the ball goes underrated. He's also obviously the leading small forward in the comp. I didn't have him, I think, in my mid-year one. I think someone picked him. It might have been Cameron or someone, but I've got Butler back in there now. I'm loyal to my Saints player. So, that's my forward six.
What are you saying, Pilch?
Half forward line, Petrarca, Dixon, Dangerfield speaks for itself. Full forward line, Tomahawk at full forward. That's an obvious one. And then one of the forward pockets, you boys won't cop this. It's extremely biased, but I've gone with Robbie Gray in the forward pocket. We've seen the abuse that Butters has been copping for making the All-Australian squad, but Robbie Gray was better than Butters in disposals, tackles, goals, contested possessions, score involvements, and score assists this season. And he's had like similar stat lines to previous seasons where he has made the final 22. So he's flown under the radar. And then the other forward pocket was between Liam Ryan, Papley, and Dan Butler. I think I switched it about 5 times, but I ended on Tom Papley purely because I think he's a lot more pivotal to Sydney's forward line than the other two. I think he often has the best defender on him and he kind of has to do everything himself, and he still scored 26 goals, like only one behind Dan Butler. So, yeah, I went him.
Right, before we get started, I'd like to make a formal apology to all forwards in the league. my Brownlow algorithm, I have to say, did them quite dirty. There's not too many stats that favour forwards over other positions, but I think out of these 6, only 2 are actual forwards. But anyway, all right, the half forward line, same as you, Petrarca, Dixon, Dusty. All right, now we get a little bit saucy. Full forward, I'll get the Tomahawk out of the way. Obvious pick there, but this is where it just gets a little bit stupid. I know he's not even a forward really, but I've got Zorko in a pocket. I think he was pretty decent, but he's obviously like more of a midfielder. But out of my top 50 in the Brownlow, he's basically the most forward, like attacking player, which is saying a bit about my system. But and then next up, this is so bad, but I don't want to pick a second ruckman because I don't see too many teams in the AFL going out with 2 out-and-out ruckmen. So I've gone with someone who can rest forward and do quite a decent job. So I've gone with Rowan Marshall in the pocket. He was actually quite up there in terms of just ruckman. So yeah, I've gone with him mainly just because I had no other forwards really. I'd have to search a bit harder through my list of 300 players here, so I'm not putting in that effort. So Rowan, you're getting the call up, mate. Congratulations, son. And yeah, but I feel bad. I haven't put in enough effort here because I know if I was, a number 4 batsman and they've put in an opening batsman in the number 4 spot, I would be pissed off. So apologies to all AFL players out there listening. But yeah, all right, let's roll through our interchanges. I'll start. I've got Steele, Lions, Hugh Greenwood. Once again, I've just got too many midfielders, so I picked someone who probably could classify as a forward for half the time. So I'll go him. And then this is probably another beneficiary of being in a crap team, but I've gone Luke McDonald. He was actually pretty high up there as a rebounding defender, so I've gone him. I wanted to go Sisley, but yeah, once again, I couldn't pick him after only half of season. Pilch, who's on your bench?
I've just realised I've got Danger at half forward and on the bench, so I'll change him straight to Jared Lyons, just straight swap. So Jared Lyons, Marcus Bontempelli, he's probably a bit stiff not to make the field, and then Cam Guthrie, one of the real underrated players of the entire season. I think he was I wouldn't be surprised if he wins Geelong's best and fairest this season. And lastly, Lachie Whitfield can play literally anywhere on the field, half back, half forward, wing, just ultimate utility and racks them up. So, yep.
Rowie, who's on your pint?
Yeah, similar to Pilch. I've got Bont there. Obviously pretty stiff not to make the field, but he's in there regardless. I have gone Gawn as the second ruck. I think barring, 2 injury-affected games and obviously a couple of games missed, his season was ridiculous, 120 ranking points every game. He's just unbelievable around the ground. I do believe Nat Nui deserves the first ruck spot though. I've got Maynard on there. He just missed my starting 6, but he's in the team. Just his ability to lock down the best forward in the opposition, it just can't go unnoticed. And then I feel very dirty. I've gone Dusty after crossing out Adams because I think Adams had an awesome season, especially during Collingwood's down point. But I've got Dusty in there just because obviously one of the best players in the league. Best players in the league. Looking at it, I probably could take out McRae and put in Adams, but it's submitted. And yeah, so I've got Dusty as that last player. I just don't think I can submit it without him in there. I think he's just that good. So yeah, that's my team done.
Fair play, Brody.
The bench was the hardest for me because I reckon I could have had 8 to 10 blokes sort of filling the last 4 spots, but I went Danger. I sort of had between Petrarca, Dusty, and Danger as my 2 half forwards. Danger got the flick, which is probably a bit stiff, but anyway. Then I had the Bonts. He had a super season again. It also stands up when it really matters. A lot of the tough, hard, tight Bulldogs games, he got him across the line, so he was a walk-up. I had Clayton Oliver. Now that you've said Jared Lyons, I want to change my vote, but I'll stick with Oliver. Him and Petrarca were awesome in Melbourne's midfield. Really good season. And my last one, as much as I don't like Richmond, I have to respect this bloke, and his name's Dylan Grimes, as my last defender. I mean, he's just a gun, I reckon. He seems to always just stop the opposition. I don't even know how he does it. Sometimes he's fallen over, looks pretty clumsy, but he just does the job. And probably a bit underrated by a lot of people, but he's a star, and I had to have him on my last bench spot. Yeah, so that's my team.
Yeah, all those blokes you mentioned, they were all so close to my side. Pretty mad I couldn't get the Bont in there, and Adams as well. Viney and Tom Mitchell were also up there in my standings, but just missed out for me.
It's a miracle! Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.